And welcome to Tech Tuesday. I'm Steve Leahy. Okay, after the Coffee Tech Tuesday, I got a lot of comments and questions about the attack plan that I mentioned in that video. I love a good attack plan. The attack plan for me is what really gets things done around here. So I thought I'd share a little bit of how I kind of come up with that, and hopefully it'll help you if you are struggling with organizing your things to-do list. This is complicated, but it's also very simple. So I'm going to divide this into two parts to kind of get us started. We could really spend a lot of great Tech Tuesday episodes on this, but I think breaking it down to the very beginning steps is the way to go. And if there's interest after this to keep going, then we'll keep going. But this will definitely get you started heading in the right direction. So the first thing we have to look at is what's most important about the thing we're addressing and what's our role in it. For instance, if you're looking for more realism in your artwork, well, that's the important thing that you want to get done. And number two, you're the artist. That's your role. Now, that sounds really obvious, but sometimes the thing that derails us is losing vision on what role we're playing in that specific thing that we want to get done. So I'll give you an example of that. Say you want more realism in your artwork. You're obviously the artist, so that's your role in this. Now, that seems very obvious, but sometimes the other roles that you have internally will sidestep that role that should be taking control. For instance, the critic in you will look at the work that you're looking at, that beautiful piece of realism, and say to you, you can't get that done. You're not good enough to get that done. Now, that critic is stepped in front of the artist's role, and that's going to stop you and derail you from getting that done. So understanding what our role is seems very simple, but we always have to remind ourselves as we're addressing specifically a problem, what's the best role to get that done? The critic will come into play because you're going to need to kind of look at stuff objectively in that, but for the most part, you are the artist. You need to take those steps first as an artist to get that done. Number two is clearly defining the goal that you want to get done. Simply saying that I want to be a better artist, for instance, won't get it done. It's too vague, it's too big, and it's too easy to get overwhelmed with that. Where do you even start? Breaking it down really helps. Great accomplishments are achieved by small victories. So identify your specific challenge. We could have hundreds or maybe even thousands of goals in our lives, things we want to get done. But really narrowing it down to something very specific will help us take those steps to get it done. And a good example of that is I want to build a house. So you start with no plan. You just have this broad goal of building a house. So you grab a bunch of wood and a bunch of nails and you start building. It probably won't turn out the way you have envisioned in your mind. You need a specific plan. You need a specific goal that's very clear. I want this type of house. And then that'll help you break down the steps in getting it done. So jumping back to the artist example, I want more realism in my work. That's really broad. So instead, you start to really narrow that down and say, I saw a bit of out of focus depth of field in a painting that I really liked. It really blew me away. And I want to figure out how to do that and include that in my work. So that's the goal. It's part of a bigger goal, but that more defined goal will really help you take that first step. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So you have two things to do for this week. Here's your homework. First is you have to identify the thing that you really want to kind of get done and what your role is in it. The second thing you need to do is you need a goal within that. So you need to really take something smaller and specific that you can work on. If you get those two things done next week, then that'll allow you to move on to the next step of getting it done. So the process I use to get things done, I learned from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I really love this book. If you really want to get into this, that's the book to read. I have been using that book for many, many years. I've shredded many of them just by reading them to bits, and it is what all this is based off of. So I'll mention it again next week too when we kind of go into step two, but that's the book to look at. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. This is part one of Attack Plan. I'm Steve Leahy. This is Tech Tuesday. If you enjoyed this, click the like and subscribe button. And don't forget to click that bell icon for updates and notifications on new videos. All right, I'll talk to you guys next week. Go do your homework, and I'll see you then.